Hey guys, Dr. Joe Rangel, the bodybuilding PhD. So, talking about the third and final pillar of masculinity, and that is leadership. So, we've talked about provide security, we've talked about respond over react, and we've talked now about leadership. The thing is, as we talk about this, you're going to hear me go back a lot to things we've already discussed. And one of those things is always going to be respond over react. That is, without a doubt, the most important piece of the triad or the pillars of masculinity. Because without it, you cannot provide security. Without it, you cannot provide leadership. It is absolutely critical. And that's the one where most men really need to devote the majority of their time, learning how to respond over react, manage your anxiety, get comfortable with being uncomfortable, all that stuff. So let's talk about leadership though. If there is one part of modern masculinity that freaks people out and, is more than likely to get me a lot of hate mail, it's talking about leadership. We talked at the beginning about how masculinity has been vilified by the modern media and a lot of people on the left. And I'm not trying to get political, it's just a fact. Third wave feminism, all sorts of things have come to talk about masculinity as being toxic. There is no such thing as toxic masculinity. There is only toxic behavior. Actual masculinity eschews and fights again all of those behaviors that people consider to be toxic masculinity. A true masculine person is not going to be engaging in those behaviors which are being called toxic masculinity. That's not toxic masculinity, that's just toxic, or if you'd rather, being a dick, okay? So let's get that out of the way. But when we come to leadership, this is the part where people freak out, right? Because we live in an era where the feminine women have taken their own leadership role in society, which is great, and they fought long and hard over a century or more for equal treatment, for equal rights, and to be recognized as well, frankly, as people, and that's all wonderful. And when I talk about leadership in the masculine, I'm not talking about getting rid of any of that. And when I talk about leadership in the masculine, I am absolutely not talking about being domineering, being controlling, being jealous, or treating somebody else like a subordinate. That is not what I'm talking about at all. In fact, the true masculine person should be able to provide leadership not only in his relationship with the feminine, but wherever he's at in life, whether that be at work, be at school, be at play, whatever he's doing. When I talk about leadership, what I'm talking about is the ability to take ownership. Okay. And we're going to borrow an idea from Jocko Willink. And if you don't know who Jocko is, he is a Navy SEAL commander. He was in charge of Task Force Bruiser in Ramadi during the Iraq invasion. And they saw some of the most heated combat of the entire combat campaign. And he came back with his experiences, and he wrote a wonderful book called Extreme Ownership. And off that book, he's built an entire leadership institute. But when you read Extreme Ownership, it raises questions for people, men, who don't want to take blame for things. So when I talk about leadership, I'm talking about ownership, okay? And I was just having this conversation with a police officer friend of mine. He's like, I read the book. He goes, but I think it's bullshit. It's not my fault if somebody else on my team does something wrong or they're a fucking idiot, and I can't be blamed for that. It's not my fault. Ownership and blame are two completely separate things. And the fact of the matter is, when problems arise, we tend to spend a lot of time focusing on, it wasn't my fault, it was his fault, it was her fault, it was their fault, it wasn't my fault, don't look at me. That's blame. That is useless. That is functionless. That doesn't do anything to provide leadership or solve the problem. All that does is try and shift responsibility around to other people to make sure you don't get punished, right? In fact, it's very self-centered. Now, there may be a time for blame, right? There may be a time to assign fault, especially if it's a criminal situation, right? I'm not going to go down for somebody else's crime. There may be a time for that, but not during the crisis, not during the problem. Moving away from Jocko and onto G.S. Youngblood, he likes to say, you may not be the cause of the problem. That's the blame. You may not be the cause of the problem, but you are the solution. That's ownership. So what does that mean? That means, and here's another little thing from the SLI Leadership Institute, and everybody who got promoted to sergeant or detective in California had to go to the SLI Leadership Institute. And for the most part, it was a bunch of synergistic, fancy talk for stuff that really led down to micromanagement, in my opinion. But one thing they did say that I really liked is predictable is preventable. And that bore into my head, and I've kept that with me this whole time, my whole law enforcement career, my whole teaching career. Predictable is preventable. Extreme ownership. You're not the problem, but you are the solution. What does all that mean together? Well, here's what it means. If you have a crisis going on, and you could have seen it coming, or you did see it coming, then you have ownership over this crisis to fix it, to solve it. We can assign blame later, but we need to fix the problem now. Let me give you a great example from pretty much every guy's life, every person's life, really. The group project in college. So you get assigned a group project, and on that group project, there's the one guy that everybody knows is lazy and not going to do a good job. You got 3 hardworking people and 1 asshole, right? And when it comes time to turn in the project, those 3 people, they did their job, they did all the work, they did everything they were supposed to do, and that one guy didn't. So when you turn it in, you get a bad grade. And everybody points fingers and says, well, it wasn't my fault, it was his fault. It wasn't my fault, it wasn't his fault. Here's the thing. If you're the project leader, if they put you in charge of the project, and you know this guy is going to be a problem, and you know he's not going to do what he's supposed to do, what steps did you take to keep this problem from happening? Because you can predict the problem. What did you do to prevent the problem? Predictable is preventable. You didn't cause the problem. It's not your fault, but you do have ownership over the group and over the group's problem. So what are you going to do to keep this problem from happening? Are you going to be checking in with this person twice as often as you check in with everyone else? Are you going to be on this person's ass constantly saying, hey, I need check-ins from you. I need to know what it is we're doing, where we're at, being a thorn in that person's side? Sure, they might get pissed, but who cares, right? You have a project to do. What are you doing to prevent the problem? Are you going to your instructor saying, hey, look, this guy is not responding. He's not doing what we need him to do. We want him off our group right now. Kick him out. What are you doing to solve the problem? I mean, and this is not a solution I would necessarily recommend, but if all else fails, okay, guys, the 3 of us got to break up his work and we got to do it because we know he's not going to do it. Oh, that's not fair because he's going to get credit for our work. Yeah, I know. Okay. The goal is the solution. The goal is the solution. And as the team leader, you have ownership over finding the solution. It's not your fault. You can blame him for it later, but you do have ownership over the solution. So how do we make this work with masculinity? Well, here's the deal. So your woman, your feminine person comes home from a long day of work and she's tired, right? And she's burnt out and she's had a horrible day with her bosses. You've done all this stuff, the other stuff. You provided security, gave her space to vent, right? You're responding, not reacting. You're not getting upset when she's getting upset. Are you taking initiative now? Are you taking that step forward? Are you sitting your ass on the couch because you also had a hard day at work, flipping channels on the TV with your beer in your hand? Or are you actually stepping out and saying, hey, honey, let me get dinner ready for you? Hey, honey, let me take the trash out. Hey, honey, just so you know, I worked on the sink that's been leaking. I took care of that problem. Okay. What are you doing to provide a leadership presence? You guys have a vacation coming up, right? She says, hey, let's go to Costa Rica. And you're like, great, I want to go to Costa Rica. And what do? Are you just sitting there and letting her make all the plans, letting her make the airline plans, letting her make the reservations, letting her get the rental cars, find what you're going to do, what zip lines you're going to go on, all that stuff? Or are you taking initiative and taking care of this stuff yourself? See, here's the thing. Your feminine partner may very well be an incredibly competent, strong, and intelligent woman. She might go to work and be a boss bitch, right? She could be the CEO of a company. She might be the head powerful lawyer. She might be running fools into the ground, right? Do you think she wants to do that when she comes home to you? Do you think that's what she's looking for? There are some women out there who want that. This isn't true for everyone. But I'll be honest with you, if she comes home, she would probably greatly appreciate the fact that you're taking the masculine role so she can step out of that and go into her feminine. The problem most feminine have is when they have issues. Oh, God damn it. The sink is leaking again. And you're sitting on the couch. Oh, that sucks. Click, click, click. That's not leadership, man. Leadership is, oh, it is? Okay, tomorrow I'm going to call somebody and get that taken care of. And then you actually do it, right? Or if you actually know something about plumbing, all right, I will have a look at that as soon as the show is over. Let me finish this and I'll be up there and have a look at it. Yeah, leadership is work, right? It means taking initiative. It means taking ownership, right? And you'll notice that it goes into security and it goes into respond and react, right? Because leadership is also saying, hey, babe, I noticed that there's been a bunch of crime in the area where you work. So I got you this little thing of pepper spray. Just put it on your keys just in case, I don't mean to be stupid, but that's leadership. Leadership is not domination. Leadership is not domineering. Okay. Leadership is not degrading. That's none of that. That is what people like to call toxic masculinity, right? And that's just being an asshole. She doesn't need you to tell her what to do at every space of her life. She knows all that stuff. What she's looking forward to is somebody that can help her create structure in her life. And if you can master this, if you can actually get good at it, you're going to find it works out well for you at work. It's going to work out well for you with the people that you live and play around and all the things. Because let's be honest, when somebody has that leadership quality in them, it shines through. That's the alpha male. Okay, not the douchebag behavior with 100 gold chains and a giant lifted truck and a tiny dick. That's not the alpha male. That's somebody trying to compensate. Actual leadership shines through and people gravitate towards it and they ask questions and they want to be around that person and they want that person to provide guidance for them. Okay, that's the third pillar of masculinity. I'm going to talk more about this a little bit later, about how to be a more competent leader in your family and in your work and in your life. But for now, that's what I got for you guys for now. I'm Dr. Joe Rangel, the bodybuilding PhD. I love you guys. Stay unbreakable.